best practices from Coimbra Group universities, research and innovation, driving territorial transformation. The aim of this roundtable is therefore to present and discuss universities' initiatives that are contributing to social and territorial transformation from different institutional, academic, and civic perspectives. We want to explore how universities are developing long-term collaborations with local and regional actors, creating civic spaces, supporting social innovation, promoting inclusion, strengthening European cooperation, and contributing to the transformation of their surrounding ecosystems. I will briefly explain how the session will work. We have a total of 70 minutes, and we will begin with the first round of initial contributions from each speaker, with a maximum of 5 minutes per intervention. After these initial interventions, we will open a round of questions, and we will give the floor to you. So please, feel free to prepare a few questions for when we finish with the presentations. Our distinguished speakers are Rafaela Campaner, Vice Rector for International Relations, University of Bologna. We have Monika Jędrzejczyk, Professor of the Department of Strategic Management, Jagiellonian University in Krakow.
Hello.
Of course, Professor Esteban Romero, Vice Rector for Social Innovation, Employability, and Entrepreneurship from the University of Granada. Tom Sperlinger, Academic Director for Civic Spaces, University of Bristol.
Which in a sense is good. Yes, much more better.
Ludovic Tilly, Vice Rector in charge of European Policy, University of Poitiers, and Executive Chair of the Coimbra Group. And last but not least, Liz Todd, Professor of Education and Inclusion from Newcastle University. It will be my honor to be your moderator for this session. I will proceed with giving the floor to one of our speakers. We begin with Rafaela Campaner.
Thank you very much. I think we've got, the slides there. So social engagement has become more and more important and really core in our daily business at the University of Bologna, and so much so that it is also part of our strategic plan to create public value with and for society, and we take this extremely seriously. So much so that for the first time in the history of our university, which dates back to 1088, we got a rector's delegate for social engagement, Professor Maria Letizia Guerra, and I'm here on her behalf. We also have administrative staff specifically devoted with precise expertise on the topic. And also in the past 3 years, there has been a university call launched just to provide the departments also with financial resources in order to promote projects having to do with social engagement. The idea of ecosystem was already stressed in the previous panel, so we are very well aware that in order to be effective in promoting social engagement, we really need to know the context very well and to be involved with the whole ecosystem. So there's a number of entities we work with having to do with social entities, economic partners, and also cultural institutions in the territory. And we really try to work as much as possible with a whole range of diverse actors, being them, let me just mention a few, associations, local authorities, citizens, foundations, schools, and companies. We are a pretty large university, at least for European standards, so the risk we always run is to be very fragmented in our initiatives. In order for this not to be the case, we try to have a few core principles guiding all our actions having to do with social engagement. And let me just mention some of them. We really try to start for every single activity involving society and social impact. We really need to start from actual, genuine social needs. So there's a lot of work in having to do with the co-definition of activities, the co-planning, and the co-monitoring of what we do together. Also, a core principle is the constant attempt to complement and value diversities and differences between the different actors and the different expertise involved. And we also try to make our actions as scalable, as repeatable, and as policy-oriented as possible. All our actions tend to be multidisciplinary, multi-level, therefore involving a number of different actors. And also we really try to increase so-called service learning these days and have a very large involvement of our students, which at our university amounts to 97,000 people, so quite a relevant number. Just to provide you an example of a recent social engagement project which has been valued very highly at a national level, let me recall the so-called OPS project, which basically has students being involved in emergency departments in hospitals in the region, basically trying to communicate, to facilitate communication between waiting patients, or patients in waiting, and nurses and doctors. They are students from non-medical disciplines. Usually we were stressing the positive role of social sciences and the humanities, and this is a very concrete case. So we have students usually from psychology, sociology, the humanities, anthropology, being trained to start with in communication studies, but also in a few core principles of public policy and public health. And then they try to harmonize and humanize the waiting phase in emergency departments. Obviously, this regards students, but also authorities and local entities, all involved in enhancing health and well-being in the territories. This has been going on for quite a few years, and it has been refunded and relaunched, involving an increasing number of students and an increasing number of entities in the territory, having to do both with the education of the students who are involved in the project and also with the delivery of the project itself. We were asked also to provide some hints on what we regard as institutionally relevant lessons that we could share today with respect to the positive impacts of our activities and also the challenges. And therefore, I would just like to stress a few which I think are sort of consistent of all the topics which were already recalled today. So with respect to the positive impacts of the action I just mentioned, but more in general, social engagement, we all very easily agree that giving back to society is part and parcel of our academic commitment. But let me also stress that it has also some external, let's call it epistemic positive impact. I'm running out of time. Because we get a sense of making society understanding much better what universities are for. Very last one, with respect to the challenges we will be able to discuss, Professor Salina was saying that innovation happens in places, social engagement happens in places as well, and we are dealing with evolving society. Therefore, social engagement needs a better understanding of international context, actually, in the local territories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafaela. Thank you. Monica, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being there, and I'm very grateful. And I would like to change the way how we discuss, because before we discuss in a general level, and I would like to say about much more practical level, because I would like to present Campus Living Lab, a useful research hub and its transformative impact on the social and local environment of the Jagiellonian University, and it's the very practical knowledge. So firstly, what is Living Lab? And Living Lab is an open innovation ecosystem in real-life environments, and it can be both a physical or virtual space in which complex problems are addressed. A Living Lab concept is based on a quadruply or quintuply helix model, so which recognize 4 or 5 major actors. So the citizens, they are science, public sectors, industry, and sometimes we also think about the nature as an extra actor. Okay. So this was about the Living Lab, and this is our Living Lab, and this is our campus, and we think about our campus as a Living Lab. So we're using campus as a real-life ecosystem for transdisciplinary research, and during last 2 years, we implemented 4 projects. There were pilot projects that the results were implemented, and they are very, very useful, and we use them for many purposes. First is to mow or not to mow, and you can see the different disciplines that they were involved. Then a blue-green infrastructure on grey water. Then mamy public inclusive space. There was involved what was the kind of playground. And neurodiversity at the campus, development of academic space for foster inclusivity. And especially the first one, to mow or not to mow, can I ask to click the link? Because I have a little assistant. Okay, and there is a very practical tool which is a result of this project, and it helps us for the education and to measure how often we mow the lawn. It changed the biodiversity and the soil. For example, when we mow often, about 8 times a year, so you can see, and could you please go down? Okay, you can see this is the state of the factor of biodiversity and the soil. And when you click on this picture, you can see a different species of insects or the plants that they are present or absent. For example, when we switch on the last one, for example, that we mow only very rarely, so we have a very rich biodiversity and very rich the soil. And when we look at these different kind of species, so when you click on this, so we can see description what kind of plant or what kind of insect there is. So there is a result of one of our project, to mow or not to mow, and it was the result of the project was with the different kind of actors that we were asking them about what is important about green, about the problems of grass and how often to mow them, to feel about temperature and the biodiversity. The next was the public inclusive space, and it was involved. Like I said, yes, it was a playground. And for example, what was very interesting, that this playground was available for people with special needs, and it was a very special place. It's called Nest, and Nest was kind of the place that people, for example, with spectrum in autism could be there and separate from each other because they don't like too much noises, but still they feel like a part of the group. So it was a very nice idea. And next we have neurodiversity, and they ask the students what kind of needs they should involve with the places, and we use the result of that product to transform our library, and we use them and give the designers that they use the result of the products to make the space friendly for people with special needs. Okay? And this is now situation. We have 11 new living labs, 16 different scientific disciplines, 8 faculties of the Jagiellonian University involved, and we are during our campus is during living lab is during the transition, and we started to be a Jagiellonian campus living lab, and we also are member of ERONOL, or this is European Network of Living Labs. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monica. We will now continue with Esteban Romero Frios. You have our full attention.
Okay. So thank you so much. Let me tell you now about what we are doing here in Granada in order to promote this territorial development. Now it's almost 4 years that we set this alliance with the Provincial Council of Granada. It's called Impronta Granada. Impronta means footprint, imprint, the idea that we receive information, knowledge from the territory, but also we are transforming that territory. So this is the Granada province. We have 174 municipalities, and this provincial council is dealing with providing services to all of them. So it's very complex because you are in the metropolitan area, a metropolitan area where we have knowledge companies, we have abundance of many things. But what happened with the rest of the territories where we are maybe missing also our presence? So how it works in Impronta Granada? Basically, the first thing when you try to build a system like this, where you need to match challenges and also the offer of knowledge of the university, is to know what's the agenda. So we built over the urban agenda of the province. This has been promoted by the European Union, also by the government of Spain, and we had around 1,000 lines of action to be developed in the coming years. So what we are doing is to connect that, those public challenges, to connect that with our researchers, but also with the students and with our technical staff. We are using mapping techniques. We are also using artificial intelligence agents in order to browse, to ask questions about how your research can be meaningful. So also we try to generate a narrative, a common narrative of this public collaboration, just covering all these kind of news that are related to the territory and which kind of programs we have. I try to organize 6 different boxes of programs we try to develop. The first one is about territorial governance, and here we include the University of Granada County Councils, trying to find the people that live in the territory, that has already a belonging sense in specific places, so they can work, to get information and also to take our programs there. Living labs. For example, now we are testing all this approach with a living lab that is funded by the European Commission under the Mission of Soils. It's a social innovation approach to transform territory. Participation with our political institutions. Also, every year we organize a meeting where the province, the municipalities meet the university, and we try to exchange ideas to set a common agenda. Also, Science for Policy, very important, to have a program where we can advise the local administration for specific purposes. We are also doing that with Ceuta and Melilla, 2 campuses we have in North Africa, and also doing innovation labs on public challenges, and also working with this idea of missions. One great example is the European Capital of Culture candidacy, but there are many others. And this is a very good approach, as Beth said before, to bring people together, because there is a common goal, and it doesn't matter the area of knowledge. So that's very important. It's very transversal. And also we are giving awards to students and to researchers, not to the paper they have published, but to the results, but how the results can be applied to a specific project in the province of Granada. So graduate students, postgraduate students, PhD students participate on this. Also, citizen science, a very good way to connect with the territory. Entrepreneurship, we've been talking about entrepreneurship. Making entrepreneurship meaningful. Working with challenges that are important for the territory, not just thinking about building social networks or things like that can happen in any other places. And employability. Taking our talent to the private sector, but very important, to the public sector, and also, why not, to the political sector, with a program that we have. Funding, we receive funding from the university, but mainly through different European programs, also from FECIT. And the impact we got around these 2 years in Europe has been quite a lot. For example, this year we go back to the European Week of Regions and Cities, and that's there. And just to finish, just to tell you that we have a new challenge that is Impronta, but in Andalusia, trying to get all the public universities in Andalusia to work for common challenges at a regional level. And here you can see some pictures of the things we are doing. Just last week we had more than 100 people here in Granada coming from Andalusia, working on issues like culture and other things. And finally, this idea of Impact University as fourth mission of the university. I think it's very important that we set this as a priority. So thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, Esteban. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next speaker is Tom Sterlinger. Go ahead, Tom. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. We've heard the word crisis a lot today, including in the inspiring keynote we had this morning, and I just want to slightly reframe that sense of crisis. It seems to me that as societies we're living through a real crisis in what forms of knowledge we hold in common. And there's an irony to that happening in a UK context, in an era where we've actually had a massive expansion of higher education participation. I know that's true in other contexts as well. And I think one of the things that we need to do is look at the way in which that participation has been extremely uneven and has actually been part of what's produced some of the crisis that we're now living through. On the right here is a map of Bristol, mapped by levels of participation in higher education. And Bristol is a kind of a textbook case study of what many cities are experiencing around the world. It's a city of considerable wealth, and a city in which, in some areas, including Clifton, where the university is predominantly based at present, as many as 99% of 18-year-olds go on to higher education. But Hartcliffe and Withywood, which is at the very bottom in the red, is an example at the other extreme, where only 1 in 11 18-year-olds go into higher education. Mm-hmm. So how do we kind of work in that context? Well, 10 years ago, the university committed to creating a new campus right next to the main railway station in Bristol, which is called Temple Meads, which is in the yellow section right in the middle of that picture. And unusually for a railway station, it's not at the centre of town. It's in an area that was once monastic land, was then a cattle market, has been sort of on the outskirts. And it's now part of a wider redevelopment zone that's one of the biggest in Europe. So it was a real opportunity to kind of reorient the city as well as the university's place within it. It was always conceived as an enterprise campus and one with a lot of interdisciplinary teaching and research happening. But early on, we expanded that to think about it as somewhere that would also be a meeting point for the whole of society. And to think about this as a test for how we did that. We don't want to just colour one section in the middle there blue, but think about the connections outwards across the whole city. The campus, which you see pictured here on the left, is now opening after a few COVID delays this September. And the whole of the ground floor will be publicly accessible. There are a number of features to that, but at the centre of it is what we're calling our civic spaces. The big one is the Bristol Rooms, which is about as big as this stage, and which will be a space for our staff and students to work with people from across the whole of society, from industry, from government, from regional government, from communities on shared challenges. We also have a smaller space called the Story Exchange, designed to set a tone for the building, which is a round space, very low-tech, wooden seating with a beautiful artwork around it, celebrating the history of women's industry in the area, but which is designed to be a meeting point for people with very different points of view. And then there are other features to that ground floor that I don't have time to explore, but which include a large circular lecture theatre, which was quite a late addition to the building. But as part of this, we've also been creating a network of spaces that we're also calling civic spaces in communities. So we were invited into a community centre called the Wellspring Settlement, which is a 15-minute walk to the right of that yellow section in the middle. Mm-hmm. This is an area where over 70 languages are spoken, where there is very low participation in higher education. And since 2020, we've operated a small rented space there that we call the micro-campus. We really mean the word micro. It's quite small. You could teach a seminar of about 25 in there. And we really mean the word campus. So a whole range of university activities happen there. And last year, we decided to repeat the experiment in Hartcliffe and Withywood. which is the area I mentioned to the very south. And in the last year, we've started with a vet pet drop-in there, run by our students with a charity, research projects, but also critically, we were able to win funding with the community partner who hosts there, which is shared 50-50, to co-design and pilot a micro-qualification with employers just to be taught in Hartcliffe. And this responded to feedback from people saying, don't make this a nice stepping stone out of Hartcliffe for a few people who don't come back. Really bring all of that teaching expertise, that research expertise, that investment into Hartcliffe. And, you know, in a way, this is a test case for universities. We talk a good game on how we drive the economy. Let's see if we can actually deliver that sort of growth at a hyper-regional level. The other challenge we're often given is, are we there for the long term? The fact we've been in Barton Hill for 6 years helps, but we're often asked, will we be in Hartcliffe in 20 years' time? So I keep publicly repeating my commitment to hold my retirement party in Hartcliffe and Witherwood in 20 years, and you're all invited. Just to come back to the sort of wider themes here, and particularly that theme around democracy, I think that all of the kind of key missions of the university, profession formation, our role in the economy, and knowledge formation are under stress. And to fulfill our kind of democratic role, we need to show we can be meeting points for experience and expertise from across society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you. Next up, Ludovic Tilly. You all know him.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Well, let me first start by saying that I strongly disagree with one of the statements of the previous panel expert who said that universities are disconnected from society. I just strongly disagree. But maybe indeed we are not that good at showing that we are connected and very well connected. And actually the whole meaning of this conference, including this very session, is to demonstrate already to ourselves that we are connected. And actually in this presentation I would like maybe not to give so concrete, which are very interesting concrete examples, but maybe focus more on the framework conditions. Because that's very good to have all these very pertinent examples of concrete examples, but what we need is to have a long-term impact and also to institutionalize, but as well commit with the different stakeholders in the local ecosystem on the long term, so that indeed this impact remains. I think this is also the very meaning of the impactful university. And actually, let me quickly go back to the fact that 10 years ago, when Poitiers University was preparing itself to host the annual conference of the Coimbra Group, we were searching for a topic, and where we were brainstorming on about what is actually one of the added value, or let's say the profile that Coimbra Group universities do have, it was actually this very idea of the university in the city. And that's actually how this Poitiers Declaration, that will today become the Poitiers-Granada Declaration, started. It was actually to just look around and see that actually we do have a framework that is supporting this synergetic, symbiotic relationship between the university and the city. So since then, I should say in Poitiers, and I know this is the case in most, if not all, the Coimbra Group universities, this concept has continued to develop and flourish. And in our case, it is based on several framework conditions. The first one is the institutional strategy. To make sure that we can really bring something meaningful to the society, we need to know exactly what we can bring. And actually, in our case, it starts with our strategic missions. And we made it now very clear to the community, and also to the outside world, that first, we are there to promote synergy between education and research. Basically, we cannot do research that cannot be injected in the education, and similarly, education is also something we need to consider when we are training the next researchers. The second point is that, and it has been said many times, we cannot work with isolated disciplines. Interdisciplinarity, although it is a challenge, and we need to be trained, the researchers, we need to be trained on this, it is actually a must. We cannot avoid interdisciplinary research. And the third is civic university, And actually, it is a bit different maybe from the city-university concept, but now these two views are really becoming more and more similar. So this is the first strategic mission. The second part is actually which programs, which tools can we build on to reach these strategic missions. In our case, we are in France at least. We can build on several national programs which are all related, let's say, to a context of excellence programs. In particular in France, it's called France 2030. And we have been awarded a number of these very multi-annual and quite well-funded projects where we have, for all of them, injected the city-university concept at the very center. Could I even say that the biggest one, which is in our case UP Squared, the very first sentence is the Coimbra Group Poitiers Declaration commitment, because we have to have a coherent narrative. And of course, we have partnerships. The partnership, this is Grand Poitiers, which is the urban area around us, and we have, like all of you, campuses scattered everywhere. So actually, we don't even know now where the campus starts, where it ends. It is the city in itself. We have also our Alliance of European Universities, EC2U, European Campus of City Universities. It's embedded. And we have, of course, the Coimbra Group. And we need also to have the same language with the people around us. And this actually, we decided to use something which is maybe not perfect, but at least understood now by everyone, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals agenda. And we've decided to structure our whole approach around three of them. The number 4, quality education, which makes sense for your university, of course. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And for that, now, we need a multi-annual commitment between all partners. And what we have is, and we were actually very lucky to have also a municipality that is listening to us. And we have what we called in French, Schéma local de l'enseignement supérieur et de la recherche et de l'innovation. So local higher education research and innovation scheme, which is a multi-annual scheme co-signed with the urban community. And it's not just paperwork, it's actually a budget that goes with it. The municipality has actually collected budget to allocate to the university to respond to their challenges, to fund research, there are PhD theses involved, etc., etc. And we discussed a lot with them to align so that, and I think it's not that often, that the 3 university priority SDGs are now the 3 priority municipality SDGs. So it is fully aligned. And then we build on the whole ecosystem, including the technology parks, and the idea is to unify through a variety of examples, just like all the other universities have demonstrated, but it is a unified stakeholder approach. And for instance, and this will be the only concrete example I will mention right now, we have developed this concept of joint laboratories with SMEs and international industry. So basically, we work with all the different types of private entities. From the very beginning, we had 28 of these joint laboratories which have been created. But we were, I would say, bold enough, maybe, to at some point decide when they are not meaningless anymore, we can just close them. So there is also this idea that this is a living organism, and what is not useful anymore, we just stop and we move forward. So across these 28 joint laboratories, we have still 17 which are very active with joint researchers, with joint challenges to respond to, and this is all of this what I call the framework conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you. And last but not least, Liz Todd.
Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation. 6 weeks ago, I took part in an event with many other community members asking municipality candidates if they got into power in the local elections, would they make some key changes for our communities? This is an example of the kind of territorial transformation I want to talk to you about. Across Europe, Territorial transformation is often framed through a familiar lens. Innovation zones, growth corridors, investment in infrastructure to stimulate business development. These approaches prioritise economic growth, new firms, productivity, competitiveness, with universities positioned as key drivers through research skills and innovation. This work is really important, but on its own it is not enough. Because alongside these investments, we continue to see widening inequality, persistent child poverty. We continue to see communities who feel disconnected from the very growth strategies intended to benefit them. Economic growth does not automatically become inclusive, and without deliberate attention, it can reinforce existing inequalities rather than reduce them. Even in the quadruple helix, civil society is often marginalised. We, and I'm sure you all too, in all our cities, experience significant societal challenges. And that is why increasing emphasis on inclusive economic growth has considered not just outputs, but who benefits, who participates, and who has influence. So my argument today is that inclusive economic growth depends on something we invest in far less systematically with universities: social infrastructure, the relationships, trust, local leadership, and collective capacity that enables people and places to participate and shape economic change. And we've heard this from a number of people in different ways today, including from our keynote. And this is where universities need to rethink their role, not only as drivers of innovation, but as partners in building the social infrastructure that makes inclusive growth possible. Territorial transformation is not something universities deliver, it's something they help to make possible. I'll briefly illustrate this through two examples from the north of England, Tyne Wear Citizens and the West End Children's Community. And these are examples in which Newcastle University is deeply involved. First, Tyne Wear Citizens, an alliance of over 30 organisations, schools, faith groups, charities, working across a population of more than 1.3 million. The university was a founding member of this 10 years ago. Through community organising, listening campaigns, assemblies and negotiations, this alliance has secured tangible outcomes for the community. Real living wage, a regional £1 bus fare, €1 bus fare, and commitments to school-based mental health provision. And through having an embedded community organiser within the university, there's been significant impacts on students, and I'll leave you to read this later when this gets circulated. The second example is the West End Children's Community, a place-based partnership centred on 8 primary schools and a lot of wider, 50 or so other organisations. Mm-hmm. Initially informed by university research, it's evolved into a community-led model. Here, impact includes securing £250,000 or euros for a child-led park, delivering health programmes such as free swimming clubs, breakfast swimming clubs for over 100 children, and enabling more than 600 children to access cultural opportunities. These outcomes across both examples generate clear economic value. They increase household incomes, reduce cost pressures, and improve access to services that enable participation in education and employment. We've calculated the social and economic value of these impacts, and it's really substantial. This is other economic costs and values and that we've calculated. And these impacts are achieved not through top-down delivery, but through collective action, through social infrastructure in practice. The university's role as a principal partner, contributing funding, space, staff, legitimacy, but not delivering the role, while the alliance itself leads. And research in all areas, particularly humanities and social science, is absolutely key. And across both examples, what is distinctive is not just outcomes, but the model, long-term, relational, community-led and open-ended. These are not projects with predefined solutions, but partnerships that enable communities to define priorities and act collectively. And this matters particularly now. In a context of fiscal constraint, rising inequality and declining trust, and the far right knocking on all our doors, infrastructure and community-led growth cannot deliver the transformation we need. Territorial transformation in this sense is not about growing economies, it's about redistributing power and building the conditions in which growth is genuinely inclusive. And universities, all of us, have a crucial role to play, not as leaders who deliver change, but as partners who help to make it possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. We're now ready for our audience. Do you have any questions for our speakers? Please go ahead in case if you do. Yes, please, right up there. Margarita on the left, right over there. Allow me to guide you. Yes, thank you so much. You can all give us your questions and the speaker that you want to direct it to. We have different questions, and then we will address the whole table, the whole panel.
Thank you. My name is Guy Poppy. I'm the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation at the University of Bristol, so I won't ask Tom a question. My question is that there are many actors in these quite complex systems that you talk about. And I just wondered around some of the challenges in other parts of that ecosystem that exists. So, for instance, I mean, we've spoken a lot about the need, perhaps the university part should change its reward structure so that delivering some sort of social impact can be considered as good as publishing a Nature paper, for instance. But I wondered what your thoughts were in terms of, you know, there needs to be transformation in other parts of the system. So for in my case, I know that sometimes working with city councils, they're under constraint financially and time-wise, and they sometimes see universities as large corporate organisations in a sort of corporate social responsibility aspect who can do their work for them as against with them. And I just wondered, you know, what your thoughts were about how we bring everybody along on the same journey.
Thank you so much. Can we have the rest of the questions from the public, and then we can address them all together? Of course.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So it's more for Rafaela, but it's also for the whole panel. I noticed on your slides one of the challenges was the multilingual challenge, Fernando Borges from the University of Coimbra. This was one of the challenges with all the push for internationalization, how we manage all these are local activities, and how do we manage this challenge with the internationalization necessities that the universities have?
Thank you so much. Beth?
To anybody who's doing anything interesting thinking about scaling, we saw wonderful examples. How have you been thinking about scaling what you're doing to reach more students, more faculty, more problems?
Thank you so much, Beth. Any more questions? So let's address these questions and then we may continue. Tom, would you like to take the floor first?
Sure, and I'm going to respond to the friendly challenge I had, I think, from a panel member. It's always hard to remember what you said, but I don't remember saying that I thought universities were disconnected from society. And if I did say that, let me reframe what I think I meant, which is, I don't think universities have ever done more to engage the rest of society, and yet public confidence in so many of our countries is plummeting. And that is a deep challenge for all of us. And I think it does require a different approach. And I think that the mindset we too often get into is thinking if we only explain better how important what we're doing is, people will listen. And I think we've sort of tested that to destruction, and we need to find some new models that are genuinely about kind of shared expertise. And I think just to very briefly then pick up the points that have been made, I think the scale thing is really interesting. And it comes back to something on the last panel about the sort of relationship between the local and the way in which so many global challenges now, including COVID, your experience of them is really determined by your kind of local networks. And I think that actually there's a lot about how we do large things in little spaces and vice versa. And we are quite interested in Bristol in how the micro-campuses might be replicated in different forms in different places. We've already seen they have to be very different in 2 hyper-local locations in one city. You could expand the model and do very different things with it in another place. There are challenges in other bits of the system, but there are also opportunities. And I know, big industries are concerned that they don't see diverse expertise always coming to them in the graduates that they recruit. They're interested in what they would call a diverse talent pipeline. And I think that's an opportunity for us, again, to be working with industry on a challenge that they see. They don't always get the right kinds of life experience coming to them in who's working for them. How could we work with them on that as a challenge?
Thank you, Tom. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Beth about scaling. A really good question, and it's always asked. Yes, of course, it's really important to be able to scale these different approaches, and the 2 approaches that I was describing, whilst they might have sounded like very local approaches, are already scaled. But we can't have scaling at a national level unless we actually have those relationships at a local level, because we're not going to have developed that trust. We're not going to develop those relationships. They've all got to be developed. We're not going to change things. We're not going to address the far right looking over our shoulder unless we work at that local level. But the 2 approaches I spoke about, the one Tyne with citizens, is already a national approach, is already in most municipalities. And there's about, 30 different universities already involved in this. So the method has been scaled. And the other one I spoke about, the West End Children's Community, that is, that's something that has got a kind of local, it's a model of working on an alliance locally that has different ways of doing it in all different localities. And we've been collecting examples of different ways of doing it, but there's a general model that is really needed. So you've got to have those relationships and those long-term partnerships and the trust and put university research in there, but you've got to have that local and relational and one-to-one, and you can then apply it much more and scale it much more nationally.
Perfect. Please, Ludovic.
To respond to the very first question, actually, it is exactly that type of consideration that led us in Poitiers, for instance, to try to have this multi-annual framework, so that we first, for instance, do not depend on the political color of the municipality and the surroundings, because you cannot build trust if indeed every elections, basically you don't know if your partner will be still there or not. It comes back as well, but this is maybe here a specificity of the Coimbra Group universities, which because of this long-standing history in the city, they have anyway built this trust one way or another, which is the very first step to be in capacity to overcome the potential challenges. And one of the ingredients is that dialogue that you need to have with the policymakers, the local policymakers, so that there is indeed one dimension, which is to demonstrate, as you said, what we can do for them. But actually, I think it reflects very much on what Beth was saying before. We should be really on the sort of other perspective, listening to them, what is their challenges, and show actually by doing the right matchmaking that actually we have the expertise, or if it is not exactly the right one, we know our researchers will be agile enough to use their basic knowledge to respond to the challenge. And it is really when you do this alignment that the trust is multiplied, and then the framework conditions will develop almost naturally.
Thank you very much, Ludovic.
May I?
Rafael, of course, should we? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your question, which I think brings together a number of different issues. We have been used for quite some time to be socially engaged in the territory, and the message I was trying to convey is that social engagement is becoming more and more global, even when it is delivered in very local places. So what we learned through the OPT project I was presenting is that we are bringing students into emergency departments, but our students are not local students anymore. 15% of our students come from 140 different countries. And they're meeting people in distress, people waiting in the emergency department who in turn are not from Bologna, not from the area in many, many cases. So it's actually a hub for multilingual and multicultural meeting of people. And this is why it is interestingly local and global at the same time. So through through social engagement, we also try to build global citizenship. So it is a challenge and it is also a great opportunity. So it is a format we would like to scale up, but we're also very well aware that in order to do so, we also need to provide deeper and further competence to our students, which is not just how you behave in an emergency department, but how you should behave in an emergency department, trying to make people and medical personnel communicate to release tensions and avoid conflicts in a context which is, from a social point of view, changing very, very quickly. I don't know whether it's the answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Rafaela. Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
Can we have more responses?
Of course we can. Please go ahead.
I wanted to respond to the scaling dimension. Again, just maybe focusing on the framework conditions. Actually, it is one of the very objectives of the Puente Granada Declaration that actually all these excellent initiatives done at the different universities can be really pushed at the level of the 42 universities across Europe. There is another dimension which I think we will address this afternoon, which is what we call the Alliances of European Universities, which is this very specific still initiative within Europe. So there are actually basically networking across these different universities, and their whole ecosystem is probably one way also to scale up all these initiatives across Europe. Because one thing is indeed to scale it up locally, but also so that these excellent initiatives can be spread across the whole continent and even beyond.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Esteban.
Yeah, just two things about being international when we are just discussing about being local. I mean, we can be international in a more meaningful way if we discuss from the specific, from the concrete, from the realities we are living. So I think this is more than a topic, the locality, more than a topic, is a mindset. It's a way to be in an international level. Indeed, it's happening all the time in all kind of political forums, and I don't think that's a problem. And in relation to scale, in our case, we try to scale up the model in Granada to Andalusia. It's difficult. You need to learn new power relations existing at a different level. And probably, I don't know to what extent we will be successful, but at least we need to try, to take our lessons learned and to see how that can work in other places, in other levels, and to experiment at least.
Of course. Would you like to add something, Monica?
Yes, and I'm very happy that I can answer about scaling up, that we started this process. And when I mentioned about our project, so we finished and we started testing them in our campus, and now we started to thinking about how to scale them up. So for example, with this inclusive playground, we had a conversation with the city and with one of the network of the hotels, because they need some kinds of solutions for the guests. And nowadays, many people has children with different kind of needs, and they need the places that they are fitted for the special needs. So this was the first one. And the second one that we started to think about how they scale up, it was neurodiversity. And one of the company asked us what are the result of the project, because they need about how they design the spaces with neurodiversity people with neurodiversity needs. So we have second conversation, and we think about that, how to change not only in our campus, but spread these solutions. And we think about to change not only the campus like a test bed, but we think that we should change our campus to the central entities to scale up the solution that we tested before. Now we have 11 different new projects, and I think that will be another possibilities to scale them up after when we finished.
Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
Would somebody like to add something? We're good? Thank you so much to all of you for your interventions, for your presentations, for your time here. It has been a pleasure to have you. And with that, we bring the discussion to a close. My sincere gratitude to the speakers, of course, for their invaluable insights, and to our audience for your attention.